What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Homie Hangout, where we help others move in excellence. And Lil Dave, former president of the Mongols Motorcycle Club, got himself in some trouble over the weekend and has also got himself out of some trouble, apparently, right? And so, to rewind a little bit, I was watching Vegas profile stories. If you're not familiar with the channel, I'll put a link in the upper right hand corner. And he was doing a live talking about how Lil Dave had gotten busted, had gotten arrested because there was an incident at some kind of a nightclub or a bar, sports bar, or something in Pasadena, in which he used a box cutter on somebody. Right? It was a group incident, a little melee, and he was saying how highly unlikely that it was actually Mongols members that did it. Maybe support club stuff, maybe just an incident. You drinking and anything can happen in an environment like that. So who really knows the details? And I looked around a little bit and I couldn't really find any articles or anything. And I take Rick's word for it because he's very well connected in the motorcycle club culture. But I just couldn't find anything. So then yesterday I see that Dubs and Gunner had done videos about it, right? And so I was watching the videos, and it was interesting, but I still couldn't find anything. So this morning I went on the LA County, looking up inmates. And thankfully, unlike a lot of counties where an individual gets arrested and once they're released, it kind of disappears. You don't see them, but with LA County, apparently that's not the case. And so I looked him up, and sure enough, here is David Santillan, right? It's interesting because in Gunner's video, he had mentioned how if he was going to be GP, he would roll as a resident, but he's not. He'd wind up going SNY, and he has sensitive needs because people are going to need to whoop his ass or something like that. And I was kind of tripping because I tend to think of bikers as rolling with the woods, right, and kind of doing their own thing, but rolling under that umbrella. Even though I know the Mongols have a history and them recruiting people who were in bad standings with the Southsiders and whatnot. But so I found it interesting. But sure enough, no, he's booked as a Hispanic, and makes sense. And he was picked up on the 26th by the Pasadena Police Department. It doesn't say exactly what he's picked up for, but it does show that he had $1 million bail, and that's consistent with being arrested for attempted murder. When I was arrested for attempted murder in '96, I also had $1 million bail. I did not get out 3 days later though, right? Lil Dave did. Lil Dave got out. He was released on the 29th. And the reason he was released is DA reject per 849.5 PC, a detention only. In that case, PC is not protective custody. Just to be clear, it's penal code. But I had never heard of that before, right? So thankfully, Google is free. And I looked it up, and this is what it says. Basically, when someone's arrested and released without an accusatory pleading, the arrest record will include a record of release. In this situation, a certificate of release will be issued to the person. The certificate will describe the action as a detention. The person can then await a court-approved petition to seal the record. They don't need to disclose the arrest to anyone. So that was interesting, right? And I actually reached out to Dubs because I seen in his thumbnail that he had posted an article. I couldn't find the article, right, myself. And so he shot it to me, and sure enough, it gives a little description of what happened. And it says that it began as an argument between the two men, escalated when the victim allegedly punched, they say Santillani, but they spelled it wrong, in the face. In response, Little Dave reportedly swung at the victim with a box cutter, causing a neck laceration. No other injuries being reported. So that was interesting, right? And I have something else to show you guys in a second. But, that can be self-defense. And there's a curveball of sorts that's going to be in this video, so stay tuned. But the angle I was going to take is, if Little Dave has resources and he gets an attorney, then it kind of makes sense that he can, by the time he goes to the arraignment, demonstrate how it was a legitimate self-defense. And somebody swings on you, you hit him with a box cutter. that's borderline, right? It could be argued that the box cutter was too extreme. Like, why didn't you just swing back? Self-defense has to be proportional, under the eyes of the law. So if you punch me and I shoot you, it's going to be very difficult for me to claim self-defense. Not impossible, right? There's a lot of different variables, but unlikely. If you hit me and I go outside and then I come back inside and re-engage with a weapon, self-defense goes out the window for the most part. So it is a challenge. It doesn't appear to have been a challenge for Lil Dave in this case because he got out virtually right away. But if you have a paid attorney, right, your family calls the attorney right away. If you have a public defender, they're not doing shit for you before your arraignment. They're probably not even knowing that you were arrested until you go to your arraignment, let alone doing any kind of investigation as to the circumstances why. But if you get a paid attorney, they got time because you're paying them. They can go get the video footage. If it's a group of people, if there's some factors, then it kind of makes sense. And my understanding, I haven't, I don't really do motorcycle club content. It's not a subject that I'm super familiar with. I'm more familiar with the legal side of things than I am with the inner workings of club business, for sure. But I remember when this stuff came out about Dave, and I'd heard a little bit here and there. It's not something I dug into, but I do know that the court said that there was no evidence to support that he had ever worked as a confidential informant, right? For those that don't know, the Mongols were indicted like 10 years ago. They were indicted. They beat it the first time. Then they got found guilty. Lil Dave was the president of the club at the time, so he was the face of the Mongol Nation, right? That was a defendant, Mongol Nation. And it comes out that his wife, Annie, I believe, submits this video, right? She records a video of him, or the daughter, somebody records a video of Lil Dave drunk talking to her saying, hey, this ATF agent, Saccone, or however you say his name, is retiring soon, like in a year, and he's not going to be able to protect me. We need an exit strategy. That sounds bad, right? And at that point, the Mongols had already been found guilty in their indictment. But she texts that to a couple club members and says in the text that this fool's a rat, right? Straight up. This dude's a confidential informant. It's a very large allegation to make about anybody. This hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, boy. So she texts club members, sends them the video. They then get at the attorneys. They kick him out of the club, right, for pretty obvious reasons. And then the attorneys turn around and say, hey, we got to throw out this judgment, or we need a new trial or something. We got to do something because this dude is, even though the defendant is the club, he was the president of the club. And oh, by the way, he sabotaged our defense strategy. And now we know why, because he has this cozy relationship with the feds. So it wasn't fair, right? It wasn't a fair trial. The judge spends months digging into it, calling in other law enforcement agencies, doing all the stuff that judges can do, and turns around and says, hey, this smells bad on the surface, but there's actually no evidence that he ever cooperated. So what I was going to say today is just that, right? That I don't know the dude's a rat or not, but to the best of what I've seen, there's no evidence of that, right? There's allegations, there's claims. I don't blame people for not wanting to associate with him, in particular if those people have a tendency to be around when maybe other folks color outside the lines of the law. Then no, you don't want to be around somebody who is even suspected of being a rat. But then, good Lord, then I find this, right? I say, what is this? This is the motion that was filed at the time. So I'm not going to read this whole motion, right? But this is the motion that is filed, U.S. versus Mongol Nation. Notice of motion and motion for new trial, dismiss the indictment for government misconduct or other appropriate relief, right? Back in 2022. So like I said, I'm not going to read the whole thing. This was the attorney for the Mongol Nation. And him and Davis, Lil Davis, seemed like had some issues or whatever. And here's the part that I want to point out. It says, it talks about the case going to trial. And then it says, over the years, there have been a number of incidents in which Santillan has appeared to have had a get out of jail pass compliments of ATF agent Ciccone. For example, both Santillan and his wife Annie became involved in an altercation at the Hilton Palm Springs in 2018. During the incident, Annie viciously beat another woman around the face, while Lil Dave threw a beer can that hit a security guard, causing bruising and lacerations. It's a hell of a beer can. Although they were both arrested and booked for assault, they were released without legal consequences. See the declaration of the attorney. See the declaration of Mark Torres, who was a member of the club. I believe Mark Torres is one of the people that the wife sent the video to also. So there have been a number of other incidents where Lil Dave's connection to Ciccone appears to have spared him any legal consequences from his actions. For instance, Lil Dave got in a fight at a racetrack. He was taken into custody and, as in Palm Springs, was released with no consequences. On another occasion, Lil Dave, who is a convicted felon, was stopped at a strip club for major misconduct. Once again, there was no subsequent official action taken. The only feasible explanation is he was immune from prosecution so long as he worked for Agent Ciccone and the federal government. Moreover, in the months just prior to the trial, when Lil Dave represented Mongol Nation as its president, the government most needed his assistance to deliver it a judgment of over $500,000 in fines and penalties. Don't really understand that part, and the lawyer needed to kind of use spell check and shit writing this, but what it comes down to is he was driving. He was intoxicated on drugs and alcohol. While driving his wife's new Mercedes-Benz, he totaled the car by flipping it and careening into multiple parked cars that he had damaged alongside the road. Again, Lil Dave was given a pass despite having prior DUI convictions. Despite being initially detained by law enforcement, he was once again inexplicably released, despite being a convicted felon, having prior DUIs, and being the president of the Mongols Motorcycle Club. Despite these miraculous escapes from legal consequences, it still came as a shock. When the court notified counsel, there were rumors that jurors had seen Ciccone, the lead investigator, cozying up with Lil Dave, the defendant's president, at a local coffee shop. So it goes on to talk about that stuff, right? And how they still can't believe, that he would have cooperated, how he insisted that the ATF agent and others not be on the witness list. They did wind up testifying around their relationship when the judge did an investigation. Talks about the agent and how he used informants and all this other stuff, right? Then it says, what has come to light are video recordings and text messages in which Lil Dave's wife, Annie, reveals that her husband, David, has been an informant who has been working with the government all along. She has since provided a video conversation that her daughter recorded of her talking on the phone with Lil Dave, which lays out the sordid tale. In the video, Lil Dave is audibly crying, most likely drunk, saying he is broken and begging for forgiveness from Annie. As he continues, he reveals that what he is most afraid of is that the ATF agent will retire in a year. As he explained, without Ciccone, there will no longer be any protection for either him or Annie. John told me already I have 1 year. 1 year he's retiring. He's retiring after 1 year he's done. And he can't protect me. He told me, so we have to have an exit strategy, he told me. I don't know if he told you that. Starting to overlap with Annie speaking. I have 1 year to get my shit right. I can't protect you anymore. I swear to God. Ooh, that looks bad. And then there's multiple declarations of people in there. And so in this change of circumstances, which has rendered Lil Dave virtually hysterical in recent months, is illustrative of the genuine fear he has of crossing Ciccone throughout the trial. His clear motives were to get out of the way, remove roadblocks, and help Ciccone and the prosecution perfect their case. So this was the motion, right? The judge didn't go for it. Okay. The judge was like, man, this doesn't look good, but there's actually no evidence of it. So, yeah, reading that and then taking into consideration what happened in, was it Pasadena, wherever they were at, just over the weekend, right, on Saturday, it looks like more of the same, right? That's what it looks like. And I'm not saying that the dude is an informant or a rat or anything else, because there's no proof of that. There's proof of the allegation. There's proof of the wife saying that. Apparently he's still with the wife, which is fucking crazy to me. But there's no evidence of him working in any cases to put anybody in jail. But this definitely is a bad look. I know from looking at other court cases and other investigations, the feds, especially when the feds are watching you, they'll let you slide on stuff because they're waiting, right? They're building an indictment. And so you have people that get caught with stuff. You got this stuff going on in Stockton with the Boogeyman, Operation Boogeyman, and people are getting arrested, and some of those people are being able to bail out and that kind of stuff. But there's going to be a RICO indictment coming at some point, probably next year, and some of those folks are going to get snatched back up, right? So it does happen, but man, that's a hell of a track record, you know. Drunk banging in the cars, and you already have a DUI, and you don't get another one. Fighting at public spaces, like, it's a lot of passage, and I don't fault the attorneys. You know, the attorney's job is to try to win for their clients, right? And this attorney's client was the Mongol Nation, and so of course he's gonna turn around and say, "Hey, shoot, look, we got some new information. Let's run this back, right? Because we lost, and let's run it back and fight again." So that's what they're supposed to do, you know. But I don't know. It's not a good look. But the point is, Lil Dave is out of jail. He was in jail. You guys, you know, let me know in the comments what you think. Like I said, this whole biker thing ain't really my lane so much. But I was interested and so I looked it up and found out he was out. And like I said, you know, talked to Dubs and got the article, and then I found this, and so I found it a little interesting, man. Hopefully you guys do too, and help others move in excellence. That's what homies do. Let's say 1 o'clock, I'm gonna drop a video on Prop 36, the California ballot initiative. I have some pretty strong views on it, and so I'm gonna share those. I've done so in lives and others, but I think that there's a big smear campaign, a snowball campaign. It's a bait and switch going on with Prop 36. So I'm definitely no on it, even though I live in Nevada now, so I'm not voting, but I'm encouraging people to vote no on it, and I will explain why at 1 o'clock. So tune back in for that, man. Help others move in excellence. That's what homies do. Take care.